Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into what is easily one of the most thrilling, complex, and honestly, highly contested underdog stories in the entire history of baseball. We're going to follow an incredible journey that took a group of young kids from the Philippines all the way to the grandest stage of youth sports, culminating in a momentous victory and a deeply, deeply controversial aftermath. So, picture this. What happens when the ultimate underdog victory gets completely erased from the record books? Well, that's exactly what we're exploring as we trace the incredible 1992 run of a team from Zamboanga City. We're going to see exactly how they achieved what pretty much everyone thought was absolutely impossible before coming face to face with a devastating administrative decision that changed baseball history forever. How does a team reach the absolute pinnacle of their sport only to have the ground taken right out from under them? Let's find out.
All right, Section 1, Shattering Asian Baseball Hegemony, which is also known as the Far East Dominance.
Okay, so just to make it to the global tournament, the Zamboanga City team had to get past a literal giant of a roadblock. For decades, you see, the Far East regionals were basically an unbreakable fortress. The whole region was completely, undeniably monopolized by three dominant powerhouse nations: Taiwan, Japan, and South Korea. If you were a youth baseball team from literally any other country in the Far East, well, the regional tournament was essentially a locked door. No one outside of this big three had ever managed to break through to the global stage. So, Zamboanga had to navigate a grueling bracket just to earn a seat at the table with these giants.
But then, the unthinkable actually happens. In this historic turning point, Zamboanga completely shatters that decades-long monopoly. And they didn't just squeak by either. They beat the regional giants, including a massive statement win against powerhouse Chinese Taipei, known in the baseball world as Taiwan. And get this, they finished pool play entirely undefeated. With that phenomenal performance, they became the very first Philippine team, and really the first team outside of those traditional three powerhouses, to ever advance to the Little League World Series in Williamsport, Pennsylvania.
Moving right along to Section 2, the Santo Domingo Wall. So even after crushing Germany 14-2 and shutting out Canada 2-0 in the global tournament, Zamboanga hits a wall. And I mean a massive, deeply intimidating wall waiting for them in the form of a squad from Santo Domingo in the Dominican Republic. This Latin American side was an absolute force of nature. They were literally setting offensive records by just completely routing their opponents. When Zamboanga faced them in pool play, the Filipinos were handed a very heavy 8-1 loss. It was a massive reality check on the global stage.
But the Zamboanga boys proved just how incredibly resilient they were. Meeting Santo Domingo again in the high-stakes international semifinal rematch, you'd think they'd be rattled by that previous 8-1 loss, right? No way. Instead, Zamboanga played incredibly smart, disciplined baseball. They completely flipped the script, neutralizing the massive offense of the Dominican Republic and secured a stunning 5-1 win. And with that victory, they captured the international championship.
Which brings us to Section 3, Conquering America on Home Turf.
Here's how it works. By tournament design, the international champion has to face the winner of the United States bracket to determine the global champion, and they've got to do it on American soil. To truly appreciate what Zamboanga was up against here, we have to look at the American side of the bracket. To earn their spot in the final, the U.S. reps had to survive a uniquely fierce domestic gauntlet. It featured 4 elite regional champions: South Holland, Illinois from the Central, Hamilton Square, New Jersey from the East, Lake Charles, Louisiana from the South, and Long Beach, California representing the West. So this was a truly grueling phase in its own right.
And emerging from that domestic meat grinder was Long Beach, California, who secured the U.S. championship after a remarkably tense, narrow 1-0 semifinal victory over New Jersey. Going into that final game at LeMade Stadium, Long Beach was heavily favored for sure. They were backed by a roaring, passionate home crowd. The stage was set. The young boys from Zamboanga, face-to-face with California for the ultimate championship.
15-4. Wow. The Zamboanga boys just put on an absolute hitting clinic, sparked by a massive first-inning home run. They totally silenced that home crowd and achieved the ultimate underdog dream. They blew out the American team 15-4, beating the Americans at their own favorite game, right on their home turf. It was a legendary, completely decisive victory on the field.
But the story doesn't end there. Section 4, a controversial title stripped.
So months go by. The kids return home to the Philippines. They're greeted with massive ticker tape parades. They're basically national heroes. But then, the reality dramatically shifts. Investigative reports originating back in the Philippines plunged this incredible victory into a deeply complex controversy. We have to look at both sides of this. On one side, we have the ruling. Little League International determined that several Zamboanga players had actually violated residency rules, so they retroactively stripped Zamboanga of the title and awarded it to Long Beach, California, representing a very strict enforcement of their eligibility requirements. But on the flip side, we have the criticism. A major point of contention here is that Long Beach never actually filed any formal protest before or during the championship game. Under the strict rules of the tournament itself, eligibility complaints are supposed to be raised prior to or during the competition. Critics highlight this procedural gap, which created a massive debate over how the rules were applied after the fact.
This quote right here really hits the nail on the head when it comes to the critics' frustration. Because the Long Beach team played the entire game and accepted the massive 15-4 blowout defeat on the field without protest at the time, many people felt that a retroactive disqualification deeply violated the spirit of the sport. For them, taking away a championship that was won so decisively between the lines felt like, well, an administrative rewrite of a historic, hard-fought loss on American soil.
So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this pretty provocative question. Think about it. Which holds more weight? Is it the strict, retroactive enforcement of administrative eligibility rules, or the undeniable results fought for and accepted on the field of play? It's a fascinating debate about sportsmanship, procedure, and really how we choose to remember history. Thank you so much for joining me to unpack the incredible and incredibly complicated story of the 1992 Zamboanga Little League team. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.